Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep, brought to you by Marketfy. I'm your co-host, Joel Elconin, along with Brianna Valesky, and we have Alan Brochstein on the line. He's a Marketfy Maven and the author of the 420 Investment Letter. Alan, how you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm great. It's good to be back. I think it's the last time I was here was my birthday.
Oh, okay. All right. I remember that. I remember your 40th birthday very well, but
Yeah, right.
we're glad to have you on. I mean, you've been covering this marijuana sector, the ups and downs in it, and you recently been doing a little research in Canada and the the marijuana stocks, the Canadian marijuana stocks. You just visited over there. What's going on?
Yeah, Canada is one of the most exciting things going on right now. It's federally legal in Canada. They have a medical marijuana program, and I took about 5 days last week and went to tip from across Ontario and visited three of the leading producers there, and also met a lot of other people as well along the way. But that program is exciting to me because it's not that great to begin with. It can only get better, and we've talked about it before a little bit. They've had federally legal medical marijuana in Canada since I think it was 2000. They had a program where basically it went out of control. People could grow their own or have a caretaker grow it, but the caretakers turned into these huge commercial grows that weren't well regulated. So now they have highly regulated system, a little bit slow to start, but I think there's about 20,000 patients now, and a few names that your listeners have probably heard of. Unfortunately, they trade in Canada. I know you guys don't get the Canadian tickers, but Tweed, and there's a U.S. tracker ticker there, TWMJF.
Okay.
Bedrocan, which trades with the symbol BED in Canada. And there's a tracker symbol there, BNRDF. And then Afria, APH, and it trades, I think it's APHQB. Doesn't trade that often with the tracker symbol, but really interesting because these commercial grow operations are incredible, and it's really good to see them. They're all a little bit different, but that's just one of the things I've been doing. I've been to Colorado a couple times since I was on the show last, and also big market opening up real soon, Nevada. They have a medical marijuana program there that also, like Canada, they've had a program since 2000, but it was really a decriminalization program. It wasn't a real commercial program, and they are finally about to get going there, and several public companies in that space as well.
Okay, Dennis is popping in here about Afria, and that's kind of a local company. And I think you said
In
APHQF.
Canada, that's right. Yeah, that's in Dennis's neck of the woods. It's I think about 45-minute drive from Detroit.
Okay, what do they got going on?
So this is really exciting. There's a lot going on exciting right now. The stocks haven't been that exciting, by the way, but the industry is super exciting. And Afria is an interesting story to me because they are combining. What I look for in these companies is some marijuana skills, and I'll explain that in a minute, but also just general commercial skills. And so Leamington, which I believe is the greenhouse capital of North America, uh, is where Afria is based. And these guys have been growing, I think they said 60 million flowers a year, something crazy like that, on this same property. And they're slowly converting these greenhouses as demand picks up into cannabis production greenhouses. And so a lot of the production in Canada will be indoors for sure, but most of the larger companies have engaged in mixed strategies where they'll have an indoor grow and a greenhouse. So Afria right now, greenhouse only, very skilled greenhouse growers, but the cannabis experience there, I didn't even realize this till I talked to them, but they've been really working on this since I think I said 2011, where these guys that can grow flowers very well were very interested in cannabis. They brought in some experts, and so I got to see it. It's not. They want to improve the production, greenhouse production. I think one of the criticisms is standardization, but they have a lot of technology, very neat stuff, and they've made some progress. I can see, and they're well on their way. Very high tech facility, and they will probably be one of the lowest cost producers of cannabis in Canada.
So it's approved in Canada for medical use at this
Th-
point?
that's right. It's a I said earlier, it's a pretty tough system. So in the United States, we have all sorts of different regimes. We'll have some that allow no smoking of cannabis. It has to be concentrates. Well, in Canada, it's the exact opposite. It's only flower. So they can't sell, real popular in the United States, these edibles and extracts. Can't do that in Canada. If you want to buy cannabis in Canada, you have to uh, order it through the mail. I mean, you can order it online, but it's delivered through the mail. That's the only way you can buy it. That's kind of strange, right? And
Hmm.
then another problem is these guys aren't allowed to advertise. So it's a tough transition right now. I think it's only going to get better. I met with some people that are working on developing clinics, or actually are developing clinics to kind of get the doctors up to speed. I think one of the challenges right now is finding a doctor that will authorize the use of cannabis, but that's only going to get better.
Yeah, so I guess if you see the mailman going down the street the wrong way or something, you'll know that he's maybe dipped into your package or whatever.
Exactly.
We got a question coming out of the chat, and from Rob Hood. Can Alan explain for the novice what's the difference between medical marijuana and cannabis, which is grown in nature? Is the structure of the plant changed if it's turned medical?
No, and there's a lot of words that are used, and you can have this a long discussion about semantics about cannabis, which is really kind of the preferred word. Marijuana is kind of pejorative. It was a word that was invented to demonize it. Then you can bring in hemp as well. Medical marijuana is kind of a misnomer in a lot of ways. It's just marijuana. It's just how it's marketed, quite frankly. One of the things that I talk about often is medical marijuana needs to get a lot more medical, quite frankly. That's a whole different discussion. But for the most part, there's so much medicinal research, and one of the things I wanted to talk about today is really one of the most exciting things to happen in the 2.5 years I've been following the space, which is that the federal government is now contemplating major legislation, and it's not. We see this happen all the time where there'll be some sort of law, but we have in the United States, it's a joke right now. We have all these states trying to do their best to implement these programs, but at the end of the day, it's federally illegal. And this creates all sorts of issues for investors, for entrepreneurs, everybody. And so I can't tell you how exciting it was right after I was on the show in March to see three really well known, or at least two of them, very well known politicians in the Senate. Cory Booker out of New Jersey, Democrat. Kirsten Gillibrand, not as well known, but a Democrat out of New York. And then, of course, Rand Paul, Republican out of Kentucky, uh, introduced this legislation called the CARERS Act. And this kind of gets to this whole medical marijuana. CARERS, I don't remember exactly what it stands for. It stands for Compassionate Access, Research Expansion, and Respect States Act. And what's interesting about this is since they introduced this legislation, uh, there were eight other senators that have joined on. So we have 11. We have Western states, Eastern states, Midwest, Republicans, Democrats. Very bipartisan effort. 11 out of 100 senators on board. And then we have similar legislation in Congress. So these things take a while to play out. And at the end of the day, at a bare minimum, marijuana will be a big topic in the 2016 presidential debate. And Rand Paul has seized that out east. Chris Christie, not a fan of the plant, apparently, has gone out of his way to shoot himself in the foot, in my opinion. But very exciting. These topics are extremely important. If we want medical marijuana, we need to have what doctors deserve and demand, actually, which is true clinical trials, kind of like GW Pharma type stuff.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it's getting some support from the Republicans, I think, has to be a major breakthrough here. I'm sure you're not going to convince all the Republicans to do that, but that just bipartisan definitely is a change. Let's
Hey,
go.
Republicans should be on board. But before we go to the next topic,
Sure.
Republicans, there's an individual rights story that I think that Republicans must respect. If they're talking about individual rights, that's a key one. But more importantly, the fiscal side of Republicans should understand. we spend so much money ruining people's lives and locking them up for small amounts of possession. That's got to go. I think also the idea of having a medical market that's regulated and studied properly. I don't see why any Republican would be against that. I think last time I told you there was a a Tea Party Republican here in Texas who sponsored legislation. It's not going to pass, but he was the author of a bill to legalize marijuana. He called it God's plant. So it is kind of interesting to see this happen. There's fiscal arguments, individual liberty arguments, all sorts of issues that really should drive both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the cost, for the incarcerations and what goes in for the police forces, and Rob Hood's pointing out here, hey, more revenue for the government, right? Tax dollars.
Right.
Well,
And less revenue for criminals in the black market.
yep, there you go.
It's
There
insane.
you go.
Yeah.
We got to talk about GWPH here. You've been touting this stock since I've known you. I think we had you on a couple years ago. Spiked up to 126.78, an all-time high here. Pulled back to 105, but Alan, be honest with me. When have you seen this thing consolidate like this? I see a couple lows at 109, but you got some sellers ganging up at the 113.50 level. Boy, this thing looks like it's winding up here for a move one way or another. What's your take?
So, I'm still bullish long term on it. Really like what they're doing. Always a little bit nervous about a biotech. So, big picture, I'm kind of watching the biotech market right now. It looks a little toppy. I see a double top on IBB. We've had, a huge run, like a six bagger since '09 in the biotech sector, and so that's a little bit of an influence. And another thing people need to realize on GW Pharma is, it's a UK stock, so you get some currency can have a play. And most recently, currency dollars weakened against the pound, so that's actually helped GW. They just sold a boatload of stock. I mean, unbelievable amount of stock at 112 recently, and so I got kind of lucky. It's a huge position in my model portfolio, and I trimmed it literally the day before they announced that offering. The day it reversed when it hit 127, and I think we got out a little bit over 120. Just a trim. I'm still long, still a big position, but I see a test of 100 is a very likely scenario, and then maybe a more remote one to pull all the way back to 82 to 85. And I think people kind of don't believe me on that, and I actually hope it doesn't happen. But last year, 2014, there were two 50% corrections in the name, almost 50%. So a 35% correction in a toppy biotech market wouldn't surprise me at all. I think looking at GW Pharma, the news flow is going to be light for the next few months, and there's one piece of news that I think it's it's a binary piece of news, and I don't think good news will be great, but bad news will be bad, and that is they already had an issue with their phase 3 trial on Sativex for advanced cancer pain. So they were running two different trials. First one came back, and long story short, the U.S. numbers were all right, but the European ones and foreign ones in general weren't. And so now they'll be reporting the second trial. If they get a setback there, I think that's going to be pretty bad. So I'm a little cautious near term, but it'll bounce back. I think if that happens.
Okay, any other stocks on your radar here? I mean, the
There's
SC.
one.
Okay, go ahead.
It's been a tough market for people that are invested in this sector, and I'm not recommending this stock right now. I have no recommendation on it, but very excited about a little company called Mass Roots, and it's a social network, I should say, stock MSRT. Just started trading about 30 days ago, and it had a huge spike on 420. And for your listeners that don't know 420, that's a big date for cannabis consumers and anybody in the know. So April 20th was a crazy day for that stock. A few days after it started trading, but long story short, they have now 325,000 mostly recently reported registered users of their app, and the story there is because of the federal illegality of cannabis, the big social networks like Facebook and Twitter and even Instagram really will not move in that market. And as a matter of fact, Instagram will sometimes kick people out if they post cannabis content. So Mass Roots is in a position. They haven't started to monetize yet, but they have geolocation data, and they're going to be able to help dispensaries connect with consumers. It's a really exciting story. I urge your listeners to at least look into it. I'd like to buy that stock below $1. I think the low was $1.02. A lot of stock was sold at 50 cents and maybe a little bit lower as well privately before it went public. It's not a reverse merger. It actually is a S1. And I think the last private placement sale was at 60 cents a share very recently. So a little bit below $1. I think that's really an exciting way to get involved in the space.
U.S. company?
Oh, yeah. They're based in Denver. Young guys running it. Really fascinating story, if you ask me. We'll be talking about this one for years, I think.
The social network of the marijuana sector. That's
Yeah, they call it the Instagram of weed. That's what they, or some people call it the Facebook of weed. It's hey, I'm too old for this stuff. It's not my product, but I can understand the business model, and
yeah.
there's a lot of nice elements
And
there.
they're not worried about the regulatory concerns.
No, they really don't do anything. They don't take any money from. Well, they're not. Even when they take money from advertisers, it's just advertising. It's not. They're not like taking a piece of the action or anything like that. So, I mean, I guess technically, like any company, if the federal government wanted to bring in aiding and abetting, if they really wanted to make some sort of case, but that would affect every company, quite frankly.
Okay. All right. We've been on the line with Alan Brochstein. He's a Marketfy Maven and author of the 420 Investment Letter. You can check out his product on marketfy.com. Alan, thanks a lot for coming on. We hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Y'all have a great week.
Okay. Thank you.